it's so amazing. It's such a milestone. So thank you all for coming out. I'm going to wrap this up quickly. I'm going to read the bios, and then y'all are going to take it away. Yeah? Great. All right. Talia Tucker lives and writes in New Jersey. She has a BA in Communication from Rutgers University and an MA in Liberal Studies from Loyola University, Maryland. She loves mindless comedies and twisty, slow-burn dramas, both of which inspire her writing, as does her connection to her Korean and Jamaican communities. Rules for Rule Breaking is her YA debut. And today she will be in conversation with Kosoko Jackson, is a digital media specialist focusing on digital storytelling, email, social, and SMS marketing, and a freelance political journalist. Occasionally, his personal essays and short stories have been featured on Medium, Thought Catalog, The Advocate, and some literary magazines. When not writing YA novels that champion holistic representation of Black queer youth across genres, he can be found obsessing over movies, drinking his upbeat London fog, or spending far too much time on Twitter. His books include Yesterday is History, I'm So Not Over You, and The Force Demands Its Due. So let's get this started with another warm applause, please.
All right, thank you everyone for coming out. It is incredibly cold, so I appreciate you guys coming. I did not wear a coat because I did not predict the weather, so that was great on me, but you guys showed out and you're well dressed. So that's an accomplishment. Congratulations on your debut.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yeah. This is a huge accomplishment. How are you feeling?
Tired.
It's just started. It's the Tuesday of launch week. How are you?
I don't sleep well, and I didn't sleep well last night because I was ferociously refreshing.
Were you up at midnight until 12:01 until like Amazon shifted over from pre-order to like buy now?
Yeah, but then I realized it doesn't happen until 3 a.m.
Yeah, because this is the rite of passage for every author. You're like, what's happening to my book? Is it not selling? And then you have to remember Amazon on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So let's go ahead and get started. So I have about 12 or so questions. So I want you all, this is very much like school. You start thinking about questions now because when we're done, it's going to be audience question time. The goal should be to make her as uncomfortable as possible. So come up with the most wild questions that you can think of because this is once again a rite of passage. So this is your debut novel. Once again, congratulations. So I have to ask, and you should definitely get used to this because every person's going to ask this question of you on panels and such. Pitch this book to us as quickly and succinctly as you can. You can't be surprised because I gave you these questions a week ahead of time.
You didn't say quickly and succinctly, though.
No, but you gotta spice it up a little bit. Okay, not quickly and succinctly.
Okay. So, Rules for Rule Breaking centers Winter Park and Bobby Bay, who are two Korean American teenagers, and they've kind of been forced together their entire lives because their parents are best friends, and also they're the only two Asian kids in their school, and they're always number 1 and number 2 in terms of class rank, but they completely hate each other. So they come up with 3 rules for dealing with each other. They are, I've read my book, I promise. They are, we will not be seen talking to each other at school, we'll play nice in front of our parents, and we will absolutely, like bold exclamation point, not be friends. So when they want to go on college tour, like college visits, the summer of before their senior year, their parents basically tell them you can't go unless you go with each other. So they decide to go with each other, and Winter's grandmother, who's a little bit of a rule breaker herself, challenges them to break some rules because they're kind of like these very straight edge, like kind of goody two shoes kids. So they break some rules. They follow her advice and they bond a little bit and realize that maybe they didn't hate each other as much as they thought they did.
That was good.
That's okay.
You did that. And soon it's going to become automatic. You're going to start like zoning out while you're doing that. You're going to be like, what am I going to have for dinner while you're talking? That's what's going to happen. Let's hope no drooling. But I love this book. I love it when you reached out and you asked if I was do it. It's a very cute rom-com. Like I feel like we are still in this rom-com resurgence that I feel like kind of started with To All the Boys I Loved Before. And then even before that with Simon versus the Homo Sapien Agenda, we've just been like going with rom-coms. And I know that you said that I believe Booksmart was one of the inspirations for this, but like what was kind of like the germination of this book idea? I'm always interested about like what made you think this is the book I want to be my debut?
So my book ideas kind of come to me fully formed, so okay. I honestly don't remember what the catalyst was because I wrote it so quickly.
How quickly did you write it?
It was like less than 2 months.
Okay, that is pretty fast. Most people take about 5 months to write a book.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you?
Oh, I write very fast. I'm not most people. I draft in like 5 weeks. I'm not most people.
Oh, yeah, me too. So, yeah, I just wanted to write something really fun, really kind of low effort and lighthearted. And, you know, Winter and Bobby, they're not like superheroes or anything. They're not doing anything crazy, but they win a lot of like personal victories. So I think a lot of the times with teenagers, they feel a little invalidated and their issues get diminished. So I kind of wanted to explore that, but like in a really fun way. So.
What was your favorite scene to write in the whole book? Some of these questions are going to be questions I did not prepare you for, just so you know, they're just going to come up at you. This is one of those questions.
There is a scene with a mosquito.
A mosquito? I have to know more. You have to tell us more.
One of my characters is deathly afraid of mosquitoes, and she gets attacked by one.
Rightfully so. West Nile virus.
Yeah.
It's like a deadly killer, so it makes total sense. And who is your favorite character between the two?
Between Bobby and Winter?
Yeah.
I don't know. I really like them both.
It's like, what's your
But
favorite child?
I think Bobby Bay, just because he's kind of like a sad boy.
Yeah.
I feel bad for him.
I love the sad boys. I just want to hug them. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. So I want to go a little bit back, even though you said that like this like book came fully formed, very much like, I'm gonna have a very nerdy reference here, very much like Athena came out of the head, like fully, completely formed. Talk to us about your experience at like querying. Like, you are a debut. This is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. No book will ever feel the same after this. I'm sorry, that's just how this process works. What was the process like of getting your agent? Are there any aspiring authors in the audience? Okay.
Well, there's some like authors who are no longer aspiring.
Let me take that back. Are there any authors that are having books coming out this year? I believe you two. Did I hear books coming out this year? Yeah.
I made it sound really depressing. I'm sorry.
No, that's my job. Seven books in. It's my job to be the curmudgeon who's like, publishing sucks. Because you all can still have like happy thoughts. But yeah, talk to us about the query process. Talk to us about like what it was like getting your agent and how that experience was.
For me, it honestly wasn't that bad because I came into publishing not knowing much because I didn't really want to be a writer. Like, I didn't really have it in my mind that I wanted to be an author as a career. But I don't know if this is your experience, but every time I talk to anybody and tell them I'm a writer, they say like, oh, me too. Like, I've had a manuscript in my drawer for like 20 years, or I wrote a blog, or I do a journal, like every time. So I think, like everyone else, I wanted to write a book, but I tend to fixate when I get an idea. So I wrote the book, and then I wanted to see if it was any good, so I started querying it. And had it all been negative, I would have just quit and been like, okay, like, did that.
You're like, I'm done.
I would have been satisfied and knew it wasn't for me, but I got so close so many times, and then it became like personal. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna start over. So I scrapped that book, started over. I wrote rules for rule breaking in like less than 2 months, and then I reactivated my Twitter, which had been dormant for like years, and did like a bunch of pitch contests. And then I got my /our agent within like three months, I think.
Was it DV Pitt that you got it, or was it another one?
I think it was Pitt Mad.
Wow. When did you query this?
2020, like the end of 2021, I think.
Okay, so not that long. So. Yeah. You queried it at the end of 2021, and then Jim, our shared agent, acquired it. Was it your first time sending something to Jim, or had you sent something to him before?
No, I sent him that first manuscript, which he rejected.
In like 5 minutes?
Yeah.
He's very fast about those rejections.
Yes.
And so then he signed you in 2021, and then what was like the editing process? How many editors did you send it to? Was that a quick process also?
Relatively quick. I think we went out with it in April, and then I got the first offer around June.
So you only had to wait like 2.5 months.
Yeah.
That's fast. Like, on average, it takes about 5 to 6 months for a book to be sold. Mm-hmm. So like, you had a very quick, like, easy process. I'm waiting for you to tell me like this was like a horrible, heartbreaking like experience, because those were like the juiciest ones. But you seem to have like a really great debut experience.
Yeah. No, honestly, because of the mindset I came into it with, like, I didn't expect much necessarily, but I think if I queried today with how I feel about writing right now, I probably would have been like just crying.
That's
like
right.
endlessly. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's good that your first experience was like easy. I mean, some people have very, very grueling experiences, which I think in some way like builds a tough skin. But like, this is still a creative passion. It's like something that shouldn't be hard and shouldn't break you into like a pile of dust. And so I'm glad that it didn't do that for you.
That's how I knew it felt right, and that I should probably keep going.
And now you have more books that are coming out,
Yeah.
which we will talk about soon. But I want to dive a little bit more into this book without giving too much spoilers. So close proximity to me is like a big element in this book. I think when we're writing rom-coms, especially as someone who used to write rom-coms, we always think about like what trope is going to be in this book. And I would say like the close proximity trope is very, very heavy in this book. What made you pick that one for this novel? I think that all rom-coms kind of like have like a framework, and you can make any trope work depending on what you want. Some people want close proximity, some people want fake dating if you write adult books, some people want surprise baby. Why did you pick this one? Surprise baby is surprise baby is like you like date somebody, they like hook up, and then surprise, like I'm pregnant, which is my least favorite trope. One time I said on a panel, fake baby was my least favorite trope, and somebody's like, what is a fake baby trope? So, but yeah, surprise baby, but focusing on close proximity.
My favorite trope is enemies to lovers, just because I think it's so dramatic and it opens up the possibilities for like such shenanigans. So that in conjunction with forced proximity, I just think is hilarious, because you're essentially asking two people to be on their worst behavior because they hate each other. And like Winter and Bobby are such good kids that their worst behavior is just hilarious. So I like those two tropes together, and I'll most likely do it again at some point.
Were you like a goody two shoes in school? Were you like top of your class? In high school and in college?
We've been friends forever. Thanks, Nina. I was a great student.
You're like, I was the best student. Were you the one who was like, teacher, you didn't
No,
ask us about homework?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I was a decent student. And,
you went from great
not
to
like
decent
that.
in the span of like 20 seconds. Which one is it?
I was decent.
Okay.
I got good grades, but I was definitely not like them.
Do we confirm this? Okay. You can't lie because you have people who know this. So anytime I hear
but
rumblings.
they don't have the microphone.
Not yet.
Which makes me ask, like, how much of yourself did you put into this book? I think a lot of people say that, like, your debut, for better or for worse, is kind of like the book that you write for yourself. Like, after this, like, you're going to have to think about your sales record, marketing, no pressure, but all those things are going to influence, like, what you write. But this is for you. So how much of yourself is in this book? Do your main characters, like, are they split down the middle? Do they have facets of yourself?
I think certain aspects of their personalities, or like not really their personalities, but things that have happened in their lives kind of mirror mine, like with Bobby and his kind of disconnect with his Korean culture and things like that. But as far as like a direct self-insert, definitely not. I try not to do that because you can get kind of precious over the characters and not want to listen, and you get like a blind spot when people try to give you criticism, or not criticism, but like editorial feedback towards them. So I tried not to do that, but I would say they're definitely a reflection of me in a sense. I would say like Winter is more of like my outer self, like the self-assuredness, the motivation and things like that. And then Bobby, he's very anxious, wants everything to be perfect. He's a bit of a people pleaser, so I think that's more of my inner self. And so definitely no direct self-insert. If anybody, I'm probably most like Winter's grandmother, who just wants to like throw parties and play bingo with her friends.
Is that all you want to do is throw parties and play bingo?
Pretty much.
I do find it interesting that, like, and I think that there is such a push positively for, like, diversity in publishing right now, especially in YA books. I'm curious about if you have any future ideas, or if you ever thought about, even when you were first thinking about this, about focusing more on your, like, Jamaican side over Korean for this book, and why you picked this.
So like obviously I only have one experience as a person, so I think a lot of people assume that I can separate my two like experiences, like, oh, this is my Asian experience, this is my Black experience, or my Jamaican experience, but I can't. So this was like the first time I really tried to sit down and kind of parse through things, and I wasn't raised stereotypically Korean, so I wanted to challenge myself to do that, which is why I chose to do that for this book. My next book delves more into the other
That was going to be my next
side,
question.
yeah.
And I really actually strongly appreciate that. I think we oftentimes, especially in YA publishing, there's a lot of identity politics that come into YA publishing, for better or for worse. And I'm sure with you being back on Twitter now, you are seeing a lot of those arguments. And I think in some ways this book doesn't like buck those rules because it is part of your identity, but I think it's different, and I appreciate that. I think there's going to be a lot of authors and readers who have a mixed background who feel like I can only write one thing. Mm-hmm. What is the most prominent piece of myself is the only book that I can sell. And I think you kind of like went against that. And I think it's a really powerful thing, especially for like young teens to read in a book. Mm-hmm. Which makes me ask another question. What was the hardest part of this book to write? It can be about anything at all.
Pretending that I'm good at like as good as them, and they're good at science and maths, and they would say smart things, and like I'm not good at science and math.
Well, what are you good at?
Nothing.
Oh my God.
I don't know. Writing, I guess.
Was that your best subject in school?
Yes.
Okay.
For sure. So that was difficult, and also just getting the voice, I guess, of a younger person, because I've been out of high school for a long time, and yeah, I would say those were the hardest parts.
And what was the easiest part?
The banter.
I mean, rom-com is built on banter, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you have strong banter in your rom-com, then readers will fall in love with your books. Like
Yeah.
Sleepless in Seattle, Breakfast at Tiffany's, The Holiday, all of these movies have such good banter.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's what people remember the most.
Yeah.
I didn't ask this at first, and you can say no if you want to. Do you want to read an excerpt of your book?
Sure.
Woo!
Do you have a passage you'd like me to read?
No, it's up to you. I didn't ask in the beginning because I personally would rather jump off a building than read, so I never said
Why?
I just hate reading aloud. I've always hated it in high school and stuff, and then like if I do it, then I'm like critiquing my own writing. But you'll be asked to read a lot, so you should probably get used to it. And I should have asked in the beginning, but I just completely forgot. But now that you know a little bit about the book,
I feel like you're training me.
that's what these books. That's just, you're in your hometown with friends. This should be a training ground. So if it like flops, which it's not flopping, then you can get that out of the way.
Okay, I don't know. Let's see.
I'm also a professor too, so I often make my students read. So like that's part of it.
Well, that's mean if you don't even like to do it.
I'm a teacher. I don't have to be nice.
That's fair. I guess I'll just read the beginning.
Yeah, first
like
like
the
2
first
pages.
Page. Yeah, 2 pages. Okay, ready? Right. The term family friend implied said friend was a friend to the entire family. Therefore, the term was decidedly a bullshit one, at least as it applied to Bobby Bay and Winter Park, nemesis since the 9th grade, or 1st grade if you ask Winter. They were the only 2 Asian kids in their school, so they were frequently on the receiving end of comments like, I didn't know you were allowed to have more than 1 kid in China, which was problematic because 1, they were not related, and 2, they were Korean. It was either that or the ever-persistent assumption they were dating. Winter hated spending time with someone as uptight as Bobby Bay, yet when she asked her parents if she could visit MIT over summer break, he was their first choice to accompany her. No, Winter said plainly, just because you and Bobby's family are best friends doesn't make us friends. Their parents had met when Bobby's family moved from New Jersey to North Carolina. It was during a back-to-school night when Winter's parents, who had formerly been the only Asian parents in the PTO, spotted the Bays from across the room and adopted them as their so-called family friends. Since then, it'd been all sunshine and Malona bars for their parents. However, for Winter and Bobby, if their relationship had a mascot, it'd be an eye roll. I feel like that's a good place.
That's a good place to start. Now anybody who didn't buy the book is definitely gonna be like, oh my god, I have to buy this book. I love this, and this is a completely off question, but have you seen the movie Girls Trip?
Wait, who's in that? Is that the one with Tiffany Haddish?
No. Yes.
Oh.
Yes, but that's the wrong movie. I was gonna say no, but it's the wrong movie. I'm thinking of the Asian version of Girls Trip.
Julie Wright.
Thank you.
I
Joy
did
Wright.
see it.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
It just reminded me a lot because, like, no spoilers, but there's like a very quintessential part of the book that hinges on Chinese versus Korean, and they like it just made me think about that. So what? And I want to talk a little bit about craft. What in the editing process to you was like something like a revelation? Like I remember like first starting and like doing self-editing and then editing with Jim and editing with my editor. Like how do you think that you have leveled up your craft in the whole process of this book, and what was something that was a big challenge for you?
Well, I learned that I don't know how to use a comma.
No one knows how to use a comma. No one knows how to use a comma or a semicolon or then versus than.
Yes, and then M dashes. I'm a abuser.
Yeah,
M
you're like
dashes.
Victoria Aviar. You shouldn't be using M dashes.
I know. I don't think I used that many. But I don't know, in terms of revising, because it was all pretty new to me, so the whole process, like revising in general, was a new process for me. So just how eagle-eyed my editor was, I was just like, how?
That's their job.
I know, but it's so impressive because she would ask questions and I'd be like, she would be like, did you mean to do this? And I'd be like, yep.
Especially a copy editor. Like the copy editor
Yes.
in my books will often be like, a page ago they were on this side of the room. How did they get to this other room? And I'm like, they just did.
Yeah,
Like-
they they walked.
Right. Like, or you said this person's hair is chestnut, but here it's like hazelnut. I'm like, they're the same fucking thing.
Yeah, they're nuts. Like, let it go.
They're nuts. But yes, copy editors are the unsung heroes of publishing.
Yes.
We love them dearly, but we also hate them at the exact same time.
Oh, and I also learned that there's a bingo game at the end of the book. I learned that I don't know how to play bingo.
There have definitely been games or things that I have put in my book, and my copy editor's been like, that is not at all like how that works.
Yeah, she was like, did you mean this? And I was like, I don't know, do I?
Oftentimes I just approve. I'm like, this seems, you're the smart person. When they like say like according to X and they link to a source, I'm like, I'm not going to fight that.
I'm not going to argue with X.
Right. Like sometimes I'm like, well, no, this is not also worth it. Like,
Yeah.
what's the point?
Yeah, you got to pick your hills to
You
die
gotta pick
on.
your battles. What is something that you hope readers take away from this book?
I think just a sense of joy. I think for younger readers, like I said before, like their problems and their issues can get diminished sometimes. So I hope they feel seen a little bit, that like their uncertainties are valid and it doesn't matter like how small, because like, you know, it can seem minor to other people, but to them it's a big deal. And I think for older readers, I think I wanted to capture a sense of nostalgia, like for, you know, when you had friends of that age, when you're like 17, you know, your first love, your first crush, that kind of thing. So just a sense of joy.
I think that's great. I mean, I think we need like joy now. Like the world is like a little bit on fire, just a little bit. It's just a little bit on fire. So like it's nice. I always think that rom-coms and like these books give people a sense of joy and escapism that is worthwhile. There was some musician that I was listening to a couple weeks ago who said that like, when I want you for like Amy Winehouse said that like I want you to forget about your like woes while you're thinking about me for like a few minutes, because the Amy Winehouse movie is coming out and she says that in the trailer, and I was like, oh, like that's kind of what authors do. Funny enough, I've never listened to an Amy Winehouse song, but like
That should change.
yeah, I told my boyfriend that in the movie theater. He looked at me, he's like, you disgust me, and so now my homework is to listen to Back to Black before he comes over on Thursday. So
I approve.
so I have 5 more questions.
Okay, cool.
So you all have to like start thinking of questions, so make sure that you all have them. What are some of your favorite rom-coms and or teen movies?
Okay. I feel like I'm going to get judgment for this, but
I'm
whatever.
excited, I love judgment.
For rom-com movies, the one I revisit every year is The Holiday.
That's a great movie.
Okay, good.
One of the best rom-coms.
Okay, save space. Love it.
For now, let's wait till your next answer.
And teen movies, I love Clueless and Mean Girls.
Definitely.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm not the biggest fan of Clueless, but like
Okay.
that's Mean Girls is the original Mean Girls or the new Mean Girls?
I haven't seen the new one.
You're not missing anything.
Oh, okay.
Did you have something?
Someone said there's only one.
Yeah, there is. Who said there's only
Fair.
one? There is only one Mean Girls. The second one is, I mean, it's okay, but like
It's a musical, right?
it's because it's Mean Girls the movie, the musical, because it's
Oh.
based off of the Mean Girls musical. That's based off of the movie, which is based off of the
That's
book.
too much.
It's too much. It's like High School Musical, the TV show, the musical, or whatever.
I'll
Yeah.
still see it, but
You're not missing anything. But it's cute. What inspirations do you have for up and coming authors? Like some type of like lessons, and also who are some of your authorial inspirations?
to be perfectly honest, I don't read very much.
We have to fix that answer.
I know, I don't have time, because like when I'm drafting, I really don't like to read while I'm doing that.
I use that excuse too, and I always get like scowled from the audience.
Let me have it. But for new authors, I would say engage with your community. Like definitely make as many friends as you can. Because I think I probably would have quit very early on if I hadn't met some of the people I met along the way.
Okay. New question that I did not prepare you for, but it's a very easy one. Are you a pantser or a plotter?
If you had asked me like 2 years ago, I would have said plotter 100%. But since then, I've been kind of drifting towards the
Interesting.
pantsing.
That's opposite of usual. Usually when people sell a book, they become a plotter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because like you have to like, you usually, especially for your second book, you might have sold it like just on like a couple chapters, or you might have just, because it was a 2-book deal, correct?
Yeah.
So you might have just like given an idea, and I'm sure you had a short time to write it. How long did you have to write your second book?
It was like 3 months.
Yeah, and so like 3 months is like, it's not a lot of time.
Yeah.
So usually people have like a plotted outline, but you just kind of just like went on
Yeah,
ahead.
I mean, I had a general idea, and then I was like, well, let me just see how far I can get in 3 months.
There we go. I was gonna ask you, what are you reading now? But you just told me that you're like not reading.
Yeah,
So what are
well-
you watching now?
I am reading. Okay, I'm reading I Wish You Weren't Here by Aaron Baldwin.
Okay.
I believe it comes out in June.
Yeah.
And I have 2 books for the plane this weekend. So one is The Forest Demands Its
Oh,
Due.
thank you.
Do you want to give your pitch?
Do I have to?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. Oh my God. The Forest Demands Its Due came out in October of last year. It's a USA Today bestseller, and it follows Douglas. I'm like, who's my main character's name? Douglas, who is charged with burning down a whole apartment complex in Washington, D.C., which he claims that he did not do. He's given the opportunity for his record to be erased if he attends an elite private school in Vermont. He's not exactly sure why, but he takes the opportunity. When he goes up to Vermont, he learns that the school and the town has a curse. Any person who dies within the vicinity of the school is erased from everybody's memories except for the founding family descendants. And for some reason, Douglas also remembers them, even though he's not descendant. What he learns is that there's a malevolent eldritch god inside of the forest that is somehow collecting a blood debt because of these deaths, and him trying to figure out how to solve that mystery.
I have some notes. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay, you have notes? Okay, lay them on me. What notes do you have?
No, I'm kidding. Beautiful, immaculate.
I do a lot of school visits for high school kids, and so like it is very often if I've done a book that they've read that they'll like raise their hand and be like, I don't like that book. I read it and I hated it. So it's always refreshing. Like they will not hold back.
Okay, well.
And then I have one more question. Like, what is next for you? Can you pitch your next book, or can you tell us anything about it?
So I feel like it's subject to change,
As
so
of-
I don't
yeah.
want to say too much about it
Okay.
yet, but it is another rom-com, and it should come out in 2025.
Okay. Ooh, I have another follow-up question. Are you going to write more rom-coms after this?
I think so, for
Okay.
sure, definitely. Maybe
What-
not my very next one, but
That makes
Yeah.
sense. What is one genre that you hope to write in, like another genre, if you intend to leave? And what is one genre that you will never write?
I really want to write horror,
Okay.
and then never write probably maybe mystery
That's
or
fair.
something like that.
I get bored with mysteries. Like, I sometimes watch them on TV, and I was just like, I understand that part of the mystery is like how we get there.
Yeah.
But I'm like, we always have a murderer, we always have some serial killer, they're always going to be found, and I was just like, this isn't.
I don't think
refreshing.
I'm not clever enough to be like to plant the seeds of a mystery.
Yeah, and I feel like there's nothing worse than writing a mystery and having reviewers be like, I guess this on page 2. That would break me.
Yes, I would just have to bury myself in the sand somewhere.
Well, congratulations on your debut. Thank you for having
you.
this conversation with me. Let's give her a round of applause. Now it's time for audience questions. We should flood her with questions. What do we have?
That's something. Yeah, so is there something in particular in your book, like a hook that pulled you through the writing, especially as quickly as you ended up writing it?
You mean as like a plot point that pulled me through?
It could be anything, like something, the main thing that seems like really pulled you through it.
Honestly, I think I did the banter first, and then I wrote scenes to fit the banter. Because for me, the comedy was first and foremost and the character work before the story.
That's actually not that uncommon. There's a lot of authors that kind of write the dialogue first and then write the exposition around it. I've actually heard that before.
And then I tried to write as many food descriptions as possible.
Leah Johnson, who wrote "You Should See Me in a Crown," which is a brilliant YA, contemporary queer YA book, said that she writes her scenes first because she writes rom-coms, and then she finds a way to make them like over the top funny in edits afterwards. So she kind of like writes like a scaffolding and like, how can I make this scene 10 times funnier afterwards?
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Other questions?
How do you get through writer's block?
Writer's block?
That is also a common question, so you should prepare for that one.
I feel like I don't get writer's block. I feel like if I can just sit down and start, then it's fine. So I know that's an unsatisfying answer. But I also don't want to be one of those people like, oh, writer's block is a myth. Like, do you get writer's block?
I do get writer's block. Usually for me, writer's block means that I'm exhausted. So like I write 2 to 3 books at a time. Like I'm 3 contracts deep right now. So like I'm juggling a lot of contracts. And so usually I just get burnt out. So usually what I try to do is I set a certain amount of days that I don't write. It's usually 2 to 3 days. And I hold true to that. Like I'm not touching the pen at all. Then usually at about 5 or 6 hours, sometimes 12 hours in, like I am clawing at the walls
Exactly.
to start writing, but I hold true to that and I don't write anything so I can build that energy back up. So at its core, writer's block is usually a need to refill the well. For me, that is movies. I watch 100 movies a year, so like that's how I refill my well.
Same. That's exactly what I do. So because it is only like a day or so, I wouldn't consider it writer's block. But I guess, yeah, that would be the answer.
How did you, I feel like there's so many there's so many editors out there. Like, how did you find the right one for your like genre and like niche?
I was very unfamiliar with all the editors, so I let our agent just tell me.
Oh, sorry. I
what
mean,
to
how
do.
did you do that with your agent? Like, pitch it to someone who like that's their bread and butter that they.
Oh, I don't know. I guess he just knows everyone, and
I think the question is, how did you find your agent? Is that the
Yeah.
question?
Oh, how did I
Yeah.
find my
Yeah.
agent?
Because there's so many, I feel like there's like there's agents that do like a breadth of different, styles of books. Like some are like very niche, some like, have like nonfiction, fiction. Were you just trying to like cast a wide net? Or?
So most agents will list like what genres they represent, and I knew a few of his clients, including this one over here.
Did you know me beforehand?
I did.
Oh, I'm honored.
I've read one of your books before.
Which one?
I know what it's called. I'm just nervous. I'm so.
Not over you?
Yes.
Like I read a little shit. I did not actually read it.
I'm one of those people. I read a book and it falls out of my brain the
That's
next
fair.
day. Yeah. Yeah. So he listed everything on his. There's like a website where agents list like what they represent, and I just liked his vibe because at the time he had a Twitter, and I thought he was very entertaining.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Jim is a good agent. Like, we're very lucky to have Jim. Like, not to toot our horn, but he's one of the top YA agents. So, like, Jim is a very good one. In general, I agree with all that. Like, you look on a website, there's a lot of them. Query Tracker, MSWL for manuscript wish list, and you can kind of just like sort through genres and then figure it out. Part of it is also a conversation.
Yeah.
So when you get an offer of representation, you can talk to an agent. Let's say that you write rom-coms, but you want to write fantasy in the future. Even if that agent doesn't say they represent fantasy, you can have a conversation about it. Jim, for example, doesn't represent certain stuff. He represents it for authors, though, who are already in his clientele.
Yeah.
So picture books, for example,
Like,
Jim hates picture books.
Yeah, he says he doesn't, but he has a lot of picture books on his list.
Jim didn't do adult rom-coms until I wrote adult rom-coms, and I was like, well, I'm doing this, so like that's often how it happens.
Got it.
Yeah.
So not Craigslist.
No. If there's an agent on Craigslist, I feel like you should run.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Oh, there we go.
Yeah, did you form any attachment to your characters? Like, was it hard to say bye to them when you finished the book?
I don't think it's hard to say bye to them, but I'm definitely attached to them. Like, I feel like they're my friends, and I talk about them like they're real.
That's fair.
Yes.
When I'm done with a book, I want to kick them down the steps. No attachment. I'm like, time to move on to the next set of characters of torture.
I'm not in the stage of my career where I'm killing off characters yet, but I will get there.
When you get there, it is so fun. Like, especially if you want to write horror, there is so much fun in being like, what is the most gruesome way I can kill this character? And then your editor will be like, I will only allow one decapitation per book. And then you have to like figure out which one you're gonna do.
Okay, noted. One decapitation.
Other questions?
Would you do a sequel to this book?
I don't think I would do a direct sequel. I don't know how much I can say about the next book that's coming out, but it's more of a spin-off than a direct sequel. But it's related. It's in this universe.
Oh, cool.
Is the sequel
Rashad.
Apologies if you've answered this question before, but what made you choose YA and rom-com in particular?
So, I think it was just the age that I was at when I started writing. I was like in my early 20s or mid 20s, and that's just what I was reading. That's like just what I was into. So there wasn't any like deep thought behind it. And then for rom-com, the first book I wrote was actually like a magical realism, low fantasy kind of a thing, and that was that first book that I queried, and all of the feedback I got was basically like just the book is trash, but the romance, amazing. So I decided to use that feedback, and then I decided to only write like a straightforward romance.
Do you have a question?
I was just excited about a possible spin-off sequel and was wondering if it was about the grandma.
She says she TBD.
I just got
Yes.
excited. Sorry.
You mentioned that you read about food in the book, so I'm wondering, how did you think about writing about food?
How? I'm just greedy. I don't know, I just think it's a natural thing. Like, it's a part of, I think food is a big part of culture. So with them, they have a lot of disconnect from their culture, so one way they can, do it is through food. because it's like probably the most accessible to them. And I just like writing food descriptions, so I just threw them in. And they're going all up and down the East Coast, so there's so many different like specific foods in each state. So I just wanted to, you know, get some local color in the book, but that way.
Have you been to all the states in the book?
I have.
Have you been to every state in the country?
No,
Just curious. How well traveled are you in the United States?
not very.
Okay.
I've been to maybe, well, what's considered well traveled? I've been to maybe 15 to 20.
Oh, fair.
Okay.
I don't think there's an actual definition. What is your favorite state that you've been
New
to?
Jersey.
Let's try that question again. What's your favorite state besides New Jersey?
Jersey.
Still New Jersey.
Probably Maryland.
Good choice. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm from Maryland, so like that's the right
Yeah.
choice. Did you have a question? Yes.
I had two questions. I was gonna ask, you know, this obviously is like long form. Have you written like anything shorter, like short stories or like screenplays or like other kinds of writing, or is that of interest to you?
I did. I studied screenwriting in college, so I have written a few screenplays. I'll probably revisit that at some point. I don't really like writing short stories, to be honest. I think I just like more space to say more things. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I've written some microfiction, but not much.
And the other thing I was gonna ask is, it sounds like the way that Bobby and Winter are set up is like they're the only two Asian kids in their school. Like, I was wondering, did you approach any of like, I don't know, I feel like when folks are usually like in a minority of some kind and they're the only people, usually you kind of experience some flack from other people, other students, other kinds of things like that. Anything like that in this book, or?
Not really, just because most of it takes place, well, all of it takes place during the summer, so they're not really in school, but it's alluded to a few times.
Any last questions?
Where can we buy your book?
Yes.
The internet. Or right here.
Here, you can
Right here.
support your local indie.
Bookstores.
Not the internet. Fuck Amazon. No, I'm sorry. Screw Amazon. There's a child. I'm sorry. No, you gotta support your local indie.
My niece, she's used to it.
All right. Any other questions before we end? All right. Congratulations.